Murat Yesiltas. He's a professor and director of security studies at the SETA Foundation based in Ankara. Mr. Yesiltas, thank you very much for joining us. Now, we've had confirmation that Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will meet with Vladimir Putin on the 5th of March. Of course, the battle for Idlib will be top of his agenda. How do you expect that some common ground perhaps can be brought between those two men as they discuss what happens next?
I think this is the very important meeting between President Erdogan and President Putin, which will eventually shape the future of the conflict. I think Turkey has many advantages in the context of its operational tempo plus escalation dominance. As you can easily see, the consequences of Turkish airstrike and Turkish offensive, I think, resulted in many casualties on the line of regime forces. Regime lost many critical points in the context of its military capacity. There is a huge inability in terms of maintaining regime offensive against the civilian in Idlib. So now Turkey and Russia, I think, know very well that regime has the lack of military capacity to maintain its military maneuver against the opposition force and Turkey forces in Idlib. So therefore, I think, first of all, Putin will have to take into consideration Turkey's military activism in the region, and therefore President Putin and Erdogan will shape a new agreement in the context of Sochi. So I am expecting that both countries will agree open the new dynamic in the context of which will eventually Turkey might create a new type of safe zone in Idlib to protect civilians and to contain mass refugee mobilization.
Mr. Yesiltas, of course, the agreement that was signed in Sochi to try and create a de-escalation zone has been ignored since it was signed. Do you think that now, after the launch of Operation Spring Shield, more pressure can be put on Vladimir Putin and the Russian forces to try and get them to rein in the Syrian regime fighters?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the operational game on the ground is really, really important in terms of consolidating your political power on the table. Now, Turkey has these operational, dominance, and Turkey has advantages, military advantages. We see that, and teams will directly consolidate Turkey's political power on the table with Russia. And Russia, I think, will also provide some sort of freedom of action for Turkey to manage in the context of Idlib crisis. So therefore, we should expect a new progress, a kind of progress which will ultimately shape the future of Idlib crisis as well as the Syrian crisis in the near future.
Okay, Professor Yesiltas, thank you very much for joining us now.